Hi, welcome back. I'm the Book Guy, and I'm so excited for today's video. I've been away on a little side quest for the last month, making some long-form educational video essays, but now I'm ready to get back in some good old-fashioned book reviews. Today we're looking at the Roots of Chaos series. There's two big books so far, Priory of the Orange Tree and A Day of Fallen Night. And I'm extra excited because on my channel, I like to do monthly themes where I group all my book reviews together by a certain theme or under a special banner. And so this month of June, we're actually going to celebrate Pride Month and look at fantasy and sci-fi books with a strong queer presence. Not just background or side queer characters, but main characters who are front and center telling their stories. And that's exactly what we have in the Roots of Chaos series. And so on that note, I think a change of decoration is in order. Ta-da! That's better. Now I confess, I made the mistake of avoiding this series for a little while. I assumed that because it had dragons and fantasy and, let's face it, because it was written by a woman, that it was going to be more like Fourth Wing, a romantasy. You know, with tons of romance and smut, but not much deeper fantasy, which is more my style. Now, no disrespect intended to romantasy, but that is not what we have here. This series is intense high fantasy of the highest caliber. There's extensive world building, there's magic systems, history, mythology, an impressive amount of etymology, and a whole lot of dragons. So don't make my mistake and misjudge this series. Samantha Shannon is a brilliant writer who deserves far more recognition. But one heads up, these are long books at about 800 pages each. They are chunky, heavy novels, and very much a slow burn story. But I found both of these books to be absolutely worth the long read. So let me pitch this series to you today. I'll list all the strengths and weaknesses without any spoilers, and hopefully I'll help you decide if you want to read this series. Let's begin. An ancient enemy is waking, and the world is not ready. In the west, the great queendom of Innis is weakening. The House of Berethnet has ruled for 1,000 years, yet the latest queen, Sabran IX, still has no daughter heir, despite being 28 years old. Many see this as a sign of her failed rule. Her enemies and their assassins are closing in. But Sabran has a secret protector. Iad is posing as a simple maidservant, when in fact, she is a trained mage from the Priory of the Orange Tree, a secret order of magicians. Iad remains at her queen's side as a protecting angel, but magic is forbidden in the West, and Sabran might just execute Iad if she ever learns of her heresy. However, in the Eastern countries, magic and dragons are everywhere. Tane is ready to become a dragon rider, which is the highest honor, considering her people believe the dragons are their gods. But even they fear the great enemy, the Nameless One, the mightiest of all dragons, who is rumored to return one day. Yet in the south, the group known as the Priory of the Orange Tree remember the truth. The Nameless One is coming, and with him, an endless horde of dragons. If East and West cannot unite, then the world will burn with dragon's fire. There is some brilliant world building in this series, because it looks quite simple on the surface, but ends up being a rich, detailed world with many layers. This series does a great job of easing people into it. It actually reminds me of the Stormlight Archive, in that it's a pretty easy learning curve into a world that's still quite deep. Let's get out the map. The world is split into regions. There's the West, which is largely dominated by Innis, the island in the northwest. These guys are very religious and don't tolerate magic or dragons or any of that nonsense. However, they do have their own particular miracle. For 1,000 years, Innis has been ruled by a queen. Curiously, each queen gives birth only once, and every time it's a daughter, and every time she grows up into an exact physical copy of her mother before her. Every queen has looked the same for 1,000 years. This miracle proves that Innis is a holy country, and as long as the queen endures, the country will as well. Meanwhile, the Eastern countries have dragons everywhere. The Eastern dragons are sentient, wise, and benevolent, leading the people into peace and prosperity. Only the luckiest few are chosen to be dragon riders, and it is the highest honor. The people of the East look down on the people of the West who refuse magic and all its benefits. The West, meanwhile, looks down on the East for being a bunch of dirty heathens. These two regions have been at odds with each other for centuries. Part of the reason for their divide is their religions. So this world is very religious. Every country has their own practices, and I really like it, because often in fantasy books, we encounter religions that are basically a copy-paste of a real-world religion. So you're reading a book and go, oh, well, those are the Christians, those are clearly the Muslims, those are the Buddhists, and it's not even subtle. And it can break the fantasy illusion and even feel like it's preaching to you. But here, each of these religions are truly unique. Now, there are some parallels, yes. In the West, they worship the saint, which has some overlap with Catholicism. But overall, the religions are very original, which means the story can actually discuss the role and function of religion in a society without telling the reader what they should believe. Still, the difference in faiths is one of the big reasons why the East and the West have remained divided for so long. But the even greater divide comes down to the myth of the Dragon Slayer. 1,000 years ago, legends tell us of the Nameless One who tried to destroy the world. A princess called out for help, and a brave knight answered. Using the sword Ascalon created by a witch, the knight slew the Nameless One and married the princess. In doing so, the knight became a saint. Everyone in the West worships the saint. Yet that is not how they tell the story in the East. They believe it was the princess who banished the Nameless One, and that history has removed her accomplishment in favor of the knight. This one myth and its two interpretations have significantly shaped the religions and beliefs of both of these regions of the world. Which one is true? What really happened? We don't know. In many ways, this story started as a retelling of the legend of St. George and the Dragon, reimagined where maybe the princess was the real hero. Meanwhile, in the south of this world, the secret order, the Priory of the Orange Tree, train their students in the ways of magic and sorcery, because they believe the Nameless One will return, and they intend to be ready. That's why they have agents all through the world trying to unite and prepare the peoples for the Great War to come. There's a few different plot lines in Book 1, and they're largely divided by regions. But keep in mind, this is a slow burn story, so lots of building up towards a devastating finale. Arguably our biggest plot is the Queendom of Innis. So Queen Sabran is struggling to maintain order while enemies are everywhere. She may have to finally give in and marry a suitor just to keep the peace. This plotline is all seen through the eyes of Iad, the mage and the spy, who is also trying to play detective and figure out who is gunning for the queen. This plotline is all political drama, mystery, and court intrigue. There is also some romantic tension. Iad finds herself caring about the queen more than she should, even though the queen is just her mission. And the queen has to find a man to marry anyway. It would never work between them, especially since Iad's magic is literally a death sentence in the queen's country. And yet... So again, Roots of Chaos is not like Fourth Wing, because here, about 50% of the plot lines are sex and romance, whereas in Priory, it's more like 10 to 15% of the story. So if you go into these books hoping for 800 pages of non-stop sapphic sex scenes, instead you're going to find epic world building, politics, and dragons.
Oh, I guess that's cool.
But speaking of dragons, everywhere we go in both the East and the West plotlines, we hear rumors of their return. The great dragons of the East may be wise and sentient, but technically they are water dragons. Elsewhere, livestock are disappearing, people are disappearing, and settlements are being burnt down. This could be a sign that the fire drakes of the Nameless One are rousing and his return is nigh. Could an army of human knights stand even a chance against these flying fortresses that are coming for them? I mean, look at the size of this dragon on the front cover, literally wrapping its entire body around a keep. These things are huge. And there's one more important plotline you should know about. The secrets of the past. What really happened when the knight slew a dragon and married a princess? What happened to the Nameless One? Why was the sword Ascalon able to slay the great enemy when no other sword could. These secrets could have consequences that shatter the world itself. Yet, as epic as all of these plot lines are, the real focus of this story is on the people. This is very much a character drama. So we've got 4 main characters in the first book who serve as our point of views, and they're all queer. But best of all, they have actual character journeys and plot lines in addition to that. So Iad is definitely our main character. She's fiercely loyal both to her magical order and to her queen, yet despite her dedication, she also has a constant sense of humor, and can't stand people who don't know how to laugh at life. Iad almost has 3 sides to her: her act as a maidservant, her more menacing spy persona, and her true self. She plays so many different roles, and it's a brilliant characterization. She is also our main viewpoint for the Queen Sabran, who is herself a very unknowable enigma. We watch Sabran, who is arguably the most important character in this world at this point, but we never see what's going on inside her head. She is unpredictable and intriguing. Moving on, Tane is our dragon rider character. She's not interested in romance, sex, or family. She has her career as a god-chosen rider, and she's damn proud of it. Tane is a strange mix of a devout religious practitioner and a hardened soldier, because for her, they are one and the same. Surely nothing could shake her faith and dedication to the gods and her people. Nothing, right? Meanwhile, Loth used to be the childhood best friend of Queen Sabran, yet now he has fled his home kingdom and turned to the east. Is he a traitor? Or does he have a purpose in the Eastern Realms? Is he one of the few who can see the bigger picture? Loth is the most loyal of all the religious believers, to the point of naivety. Much like Tane, he has no interest in romance. Loth has bigger things to do. His purpose in the East is shrouded in mystery. And Niklas Ruse, a bitter old alchemist who now walks with a cane and a limp. This grumpy old sod is all gruff exterior and selfishness, and yet that's mostly because he lost his husband and the great love of his life. Now Niklas needs to find a new reason to live, besides drowning his woes in alcohol. Is there anything that can make this guy care again? Now I hope you like the sound of these characters, because there is so much emphasis put on all the character writing. In many ways, this series reminds me of Robin Hobb, which is probably why I enjoyed it so much. It's an epic fantasy world with dragons, and yet the story is very much focused on the characters and their lives. That said, it is a slow start. For both books 1 and 2, I found the first half of the book to be very slow, to the point that my interest actually wavered once or twice. And yet the second half of both books was insane. The action picked up to crazy levels. There were plot twists and revelations, significant moments of characters' decisions that changed everything. In both cases, we spend a good 400 pages setting up everything in a slow burn, and the second 400 pages escalates things to a wild level. So you gotta know this going in. If you pick up this book, you gotta be prepared to work at it to see why this series has sold 1 million copies. There are big fantasy books like the Stormlight Archive that work hard to put lots of action scenes consistently all the way through the book. And then there are others like Realm of the Elderlings and Malazan that use the slow burn approach. All the big stuff happens at the back of the book. So I encourage you to stick with it. Now let's move on from book 1 and discuss the rest of the series, because Roots of Chaos has an unusual structure. So first, this second big novel behind me is a prequel novel set 500 years earlier. Why this strange choice? Well, in the first book, they mention a significant event known as the Grief of Ages, or the Great Sorrow. It was the time when the fireworms returned.
Hey, little guy, what are you doing? Oh no.
Yeah, this book is that story, and holy hell, it's even more epic. Now, you may be inclined to go straight to the second book because it is chronologically first, and look, the author herself said that this is fine, but there is a catch. That ancient myth of the knight who slew the dragon is a big mystery in book 1, building up to a big reveal. But in book 2, that big reveal is actually common knowledge for a few characters, since not as much time has passed since the myth occurred. So the spoilers are pretty significant. And yet, Book 1 actually mentions the fates of several famous characters from legend, including characters from Book 2. The Queen of Book 2 is remembered in Book 1, so technically, there are spoilers either way. So it really is reader's choice. It's your call, and there is no wrong decision. But while we're on this topic, Samantha Shannon has not given a hard statement of how many books will be in this series eventually. It's not like Brandon Sanderson with the Stormlight Archive, who has from day one been like, there will be 10. Samantha is just not committing at this stage. But one common answer she gives is that there will likely be 4 books. Maybe. So if we look at this very rough, imprecise timeline I made myself, we have Priory in the year 1000. Day of Fallen Night is in the year 500, and Samantha has discussed making book 3 set between them, maybe at the year 550, so probably a bit closer towards book 2. And the 4th book would take place last, tying it all together. Yet every time Samantha mentions this timeline, it's with a big maybe. But there is one notable exception. Coming out in September this year is this beautiful book, Among the Burning Flowers. This was a novella that turned into a full 300-page novel. It takes place just 2 years before Priory, and in many ways it's intended as a gentler starting place for the series. It sets up Book 1, and it doesn't require new readers to commit to an 800-page monster. So if you're watching today's video and you're not sure if an 800-page book is going to be right for you, just check back in with me in September. I'll make sure I'll do a review on this shorter upcoming book, and maybe that will be more your style. It might ease you into this big fantasy world. But as for the future big chunky novels, Samantha has confirmed that she has sold Book 3, meaning she's got a contract in place to start writing it. There's no official release date announced for the 3rd book, although it is worth noting that both of these 2 books on the shelf behind me took 3 years. Book number 3, my lord. Took 3 years to write, okay? And she has other projects she's working on in the meantime. So we'll see when book 3 arrives, and then maybe we will get that mystical book 4 after that. But you gotta be patient for this one. But in the meantime, let's finally talk about this second monster novel that is available today. What is it all about? Tenuva is a mage of the Priory. She trains in magic so that she can defend the world from dragons. The only problem is, dragons haven't been seen in 500 years.
Dragon? Not says me the dragon in these parts for 1,000 years.
All dragons disappeared when the Nameless One was defeated. There are many in the Priory who think there's no point to training anymore. Why train for an enemy that is long gone? In the western kingdom of Innis, the queendom has finally achieved peace after nearly 100 years of tyranny and suffering. A royal marriage has united the realms like never before, and with the young Princess Glorian in fine health, things are finally looking up around here. The eastern realms are completely different in this book. There's no dragons and no dragon riding. Instead, the east is now ruled by an empress. A humble country girl, Dumai, works at the local temple as a god singer. She dreams of using her songs to wake the gods who supposedly sleep below. But everything changes when the Dread Mount erupts in fire and lost hordes of dragons spew forth death and destruction on the unsuspecting world. This mighty new threat will take everything to combat it if humankind is to survive. So this second book goes a lot deeper, building off the first one. More cultures, more history, religions, and a lot more dragons. This book also expands the magic system a lot more. Now, it's definitely a magic system on the softer side, yet there are multiple sources of magic that all come into contention with each other. Unfortunately, I just cannot say more without spoilers. Just know that this book adds a whole lot more things that are fantasy. This story is also just a lot more epic. Eventually. Once again, it does have a slow first half where we meet all the characters, establish what the world looks like in this age, and build up a lot of things. But by the end of this one, I was reading it in a frenzy. Every battle scene was staggering in scale. The wider war with the fire drakes was great and terrible. The story is dramatic and tragic and beautiful. This is a proper grand tale of epic proportions. And honestly, it was my favorite of the 2 books for this reason. But now, let's meet the people. I think my favorite character across both of these books is Tenuva. She's a mage of the Priory of the Orange Tree. She's also married to her, well, like fantasy version of married to her wife. And she's a stepmom to her wife's daughter from her first marriage. Tenuva's story is less commonly seen, in that she is a powerful magician and fighter, but she's also in her 40s and trying to be a good mother. There's many times when Tenuva feels like she's an outsider, that her wife and her daughter are the most important family members. Tenuva loves her stepdaughter, yet feels like she shouldn't get a say in how they raise their child. I just love this plot line. For one, it's a queer story that's not just about the phase of falling in love. This is about the relationship and the family phase, which we don't see as often. Plus, Tenuva is a strong, capable, badass woman, and yet the author is not afraid to put her in a domestic setting. There is a frustrating tendency in stories to make strong, powerful female warrior characters that reject everything feminine and just do traditionally masculine jobs. And this paradox sort of suggests that it's femininity itself that is weak, and it's not really helpful. There are many ways for women to be strong, including motherhood if that's what they want. So Tenuva is a great example of this. She's so confident when she's throwing fireballs, but lacks confidence when trying to be a parent, which just makes her infinitely more relatable than if she was just throwing fireballs all day long. But getting back on topic, we have Glorian, the Princess of Innis. She's only a teenager during this story, and she's incredibly naive and sheltered. Her parents are both rulers of their respective kingdoms, and her mother is loved for ending a century of tyranny. So Glorian grows up in the shadow of some pretty epic greatness. Glorian wants to prove herself to her people, although she may regret making that wish. Glorian's childhood friend is Wolf. As a child, Wolf was abandoned in the woods at about 2 years old. He was adopted into the King of Hroth's court, and as such he serves as a guardian for the Innis princess. Wolf is determined to live with honor and bravery in repayment for his family's kindness in taking him in. He's always felt like an outsider, like a savage wildman in all these fancy courts, but he is a warrior at heart, and this guy just kicks so much ass, he's amazing. And finally, there's Dumai, living in the East. She's a humble country girl living by the temple. And remember in this age that the East is not ruled by benevolent dragons, but by a ruthless empress who actually rules with absolute power. So Dumai has to live very meekly to escape notice. But when she discovers an ancient power, she will be the first to blaze a new trail of bravery and defiance. So, literally every main character in this story is queer. Not even exaggerating. In the author's own words, she calls this the Big Gay Dragon Book, which just sounds awesome.
Shut up and take my money!
But this is very much a sapphic book. And if you didn't know, the word sapphic means the romantic or sexual attraction between women. It comes from the Greek poet Sappho, who wrote many poems about her queer love. In the queer community, people often use the word sapphic instead of the word lesbian because sapphic can also include bisexual women, as well as trans and non-binary people too. And yes, there is a male version, Achillean, because Achilles, obviously. Now, because this is a fantasy book, the author never uses any of these modern terms, yet our characters are very explicitly and deliberately described as being queer. In book 1, our main characters are lesbian, aro ace, which means aromantic and asexual, ace, and gay. And in book 2, our main characters are 2 lesbian characters, 1 aro ace, and 1 bisexual. And as you can see, there are many different types of queerness across these books. That's because the LGBT community is itself pretty diverse, and there's lots of different sexualities within. That's why it can be a bit reductive when a story has just one queer character in a book that's meant to offer stand-in representation for the whole community. You'll also notice all 8 of our main characters may be queer, but none of them have a character arc about self-discovery or coming out. They simply are queer, and their stories are all about their lives, their battles, their struggles, and their goals. They're not fighting for acceptance either, or social revolution. I loved to see queer people being queer, but also being more than just that one part of their lives. Samantha has also stated that while writing Priory, she discovered she was Sapphic herself, so this book has inspired many people, including the author, to find greater love and acceptance for themselves. Still, this series has great representation in several other areas too, which are often overshadowed. There are many different races here, with main characters being white, black, and Asian in pretty equal numbers. There's some disability rep, and a whole lot of mental health rep too, so there's plenty of good stuff here. There's a decent content warning here. It's not as extreme as other fantasy novels, but it's also gritty and realistic too. Lots of war, death, violence, and mass destruction. I mean, there are dragons in it, so expect some dragoning. There are discussions around depression, alcoholism, and suicidal ideation. There's also talk around infertility and miscarriage. And while there's no sexual assault, there is what you might call reproductive coercion, in that the queen is expected to have a child. So it is a mature series, even though it's not excessively graphic. Now, is the ending worth it? So each book in this series is a self-contained story. Okay, each book has a big firm ending. So don't feel like you have to commit to both of these books and any future books in order to get any sense of satisfaction. Yet there are several mysteries around the dragons and magic and the world itself. It's a great balance of wrapping up each story, yet keeping the readers intrigued for future installments. At this point, all the endings are worth it. Although I am very keen to hopefully see the 2-ish books Samantha Shannon has planned and to see what else she has in store. And how much should you try? Well, try at least one of these 2 books. Just keep in mind they are slow burn, meaning you should try to read a full book from start to finish. If you stop halfway through, you will not get a true reflection of just how good this series gets. Well, I hope you'll give this one a try. Good luck and happy reading. Now, if you're looking for other Sapphic fantasy stories this month, Samantha Shannon did share this pic on her Instagram, highlighting other authors doing work similar to her own, so you may get some inspiration from them. Otherwise, check back here next week. I'm talking about Gideon the Ninth, and after that, the Iron Widow series. If you want to support my work, you can check out my books, The Immortal Investigations. I also have an online shop where you can buy merch, such as this new beanie that has a rainbow bookcase on it, because let's face it, it's not Pride unless someone's trying to financially profit from it. And I have a Patreon as well, so any of those options will help keep things running around here. Otherwise, make sure you subscribe for more and comment your thoughts below on the Roots of Chaos series, or tell me any other series you'd like to hear me talk about. I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoy a good book today. Bye!